People who used to not believe in ghosts but do now. What experience changed your mind? So in high school, I worked kids' birthday parties. The place was basically a giant gym, and the gymnastics/dance classes were also held there. One day, I came in, and one of the girls I worked with, who was very spiritual and very religious, was totally freaked out. During the gymnastics class she had taught that morning, one of the kids was staring at the ceiling. When she asked the kid what he was doing, he said, "There's a little boy up there," and pointed at the ceiling. Strange enough, but whatever. Kids are weird. Later, two girls who were working at a birthday party before mine came out of the gym and were both visibly shaken. A pair of 5-year-old twins went down a slide and then stared at the ceiling. They both said that there was a little boy up there, in the same spot on the ceiling that the kid from the morning's gymnastic class did. We all went in and inspected the ceiling. Of course, it was just a regular gray, warehousey ceiling. But we were all super freaked out at that point. During my party, I was pushing a little boy on the giant swing we had in the gym. He too began to stare at the ceiling. He said, directly to my face, "Hey, there's a little boy up there." We told all our coworkers and managers about the 3 separate experiences we had today with children from different parties and classes seeing a little boy on the ceiling. The next day, we had downtime between parties, and nobody was in the gym. There are cameras in the gym that allow parents to see their children playing from the lobby. My manager called us out of the break room. "Guys, check this out." We come in and see the screen, which is streaming from the gym, showing that giant swing going back and forth. Nobody's in there, it's just the swing going. I like to think that the ghost was truly a little boy who just wanted to play, and he finally got to go on the swing. Could be worse. I'm still not sure if I believe, but there have been some weird things in my life that I can't explain. When I was 5 years old, I woke up in the night and my grandma was standing at the end of my bed, wearing a teal blue skirt and a matching blouse. I remember that it was summer and the sky was still light, but not light enough for me to read, so I guess it was about 9 p.m. I sat up and she put her finger to my lips and I rubbed my eyes a few times, 'cause sleepy. And when I looked back, she had gone. I just snuggled back under my covers thinking how nice it was to see her because I hadn't seen her for ages and I hoped she would still be there when I woke up. The next morning, my house was eerily quiet. My mum was in a worse mood than normal. She had been crying, so I asked her what was wrong. My grandma died the night before. She had been crossing a road after her bingo turned out at 8:30 p.m., about 60 miles away from where we lived. She had massive brain hemorrhage in the middle of the road and didn't even make it to the other side, let alone to my house 60 miles away. She was wearing a teal blue skirt and matching blouse. My wife and I swear that our daughter used to talk to ghosts when she was a toddler. She was an only child at the time. First instance I remember was her telling me that she was talking to Nana. That's what I called my grandmother, who had passed about 15 years before my daughter was born. My daughter was young, so I hadn't even talked about Nana to her, so I showed her a picture and asked who she spoke to. There were 4 women, 3 of which I didn't even know, but without hesitation she pointed to my Nana. Okay, no biggie. Some months later, my wife and I are trying for baby number 2. After my wife gets pregnant, my daughter is sitting next to her on the couch and puts her head on her belly and says, "Mommy, there's a baby in there." Okay, maybe that's a coincidence. She overheard us saying something. A few weeks later, my wife miscarries. Maybe my daughter picked up on our sadness, who knows, but she again puts her head on her stomach and says, "Mommy, there's no baby in there anymore." Then, several months and one more very early miscarriage later, my daughter tells us, "I was talking to my brother last night, and he said that my sister is coming to live with me soon." Again, she's an only child who had no living brother. We were still trying at this point, but had not taken any tests. We picked up one that night, and sure enough, pregnant. When time came to reveal the gender, I wasn't even interested. My daughter had already said it was a girl. Sure enough, I have 2 daughters. My parents have told me that I also talked to ghosts as a toddler. I had a friend who I would talk to, and when my parents asked, I would say, "I'm talking to the man with the balloon." We also had a ghost who would leave really big handprints on our windows. No one in the family had big hands or was tall enough to reach that high up. If my mom cleaned the windows the night before, the handprints would be back the next morning. I also talked to it, and we called it our friendly ghost. When my grandmother's dog died, I was convinced it had come to live with us. I often saw it at night walking around the kitchen. I've had so many experiences with unexplainable things that I can't not believe in ghosts anymore. When I was around 5 years old, and my mom was pregnant with my younger brother, I woke up one night, came into her bed to snuggle, and laid my hands on her belly. Something I normally never did. Less than 5 minutes later, she started having contractions and started going into labor. My entire childhood was filled with experiences like this. I've had a few experiences as a teenager and a young adult too, but not that often anymore. I had just moved into my new apartment with my ex. We were sleeping when I suddenly woke up. A man was breathing/groaning with a very deep voice in my right ear. I opened my eyes and heard the deep breaths again, now a bit further away. I looked up and saw the exact shape/silhouette of a rather big man in the opening to the bedroom door. I panicked, woke up my boyfriend saying, "There's someone in here. There's someone in here. You have to wake up." As soon as my boyfriend opened his eyes, the man ran, disappeared into our living room almost faster than I could blink. My boyfriend went into the living room, concluded that no one was in our apartment. We checked, and the door was still locked. I never saw the shadow man again, but sometimes I'm still afraid of the dark. We've talked about it many times, and even though we agreed that I must have had some kind of nightmare, I am 100% sure that I was awake, and I saw the man with my own eyes. Maybe I'm just crazy. Once when I was in university, I went to go see my therapist, whom I had been seeing twice a week for about 5 months. On this day, he was uncharacteristically quiet, and I asked him if he was alright. He said he was fine, and we continued through what would be one of our most breakthrough sessions. A lot of repressed memories came up through it that have helped me to heal. At the end of the session, I asked him why he was acting differently today than other days. He said when I walked in, I was accompanied by a warrior-like person. He said he had the overwhelming feeling to perform as best as he professionally could that day, and he got the sense this warrior had fought a lot of battles to protect me. This would seem coincidental, except for 10 years later, I was living on the other side of the world. I had a Puerto Rican neighbor I would see occasionally and eventually got pretty close with him and his family. One day, as I was walking by, he kind of gets quiet and weird, and then he says in broken English, "Do you know there's a soldier who follows you around?" I knew instantly who he was talking about. In both instances, the warrior soldier was described as the same, just 6 feet, blonde curly hair, wearing primitive warrior clothing, and strangely, a white guy. Neither of these people could have known that my closest brother, who passed away at 14, was over 6 feet tall, with blonde curly hair, and was always my protector. I was 8 when my grandma died. I was sad. So around 2 months passed, and I was going to my grandma's house where grandpa lives. So I wake up at 3 a.m. and hear footsteps from bedroom door. I froze. I saw my grandma walking up to me, and she said, "Hello, little sweetie," and walked away. It was not sleep paralysis because I could move my hands and feet. And in the morning, I told my grandpa about it, and he said, "I've seen Grandma almost every night. She likes to visit, so don't be scared next time when you visit." My girlfriend's grandfather's ashes were on a little shelf in the living room, right next to a very solid, heavy angel statue. Well, one weekend, she and I are fooling around in the living room couch, and out of the corner of my eye, I see an angel statue fly off the wall, accompanied by a deep grunt. Now, when I say this thing flew off the wall, I'm talking 7 or 8 feet of air before landing on the hardwood and leaving a dent where the wing hit. Even if this thing had fell off the wall, it would have dropped straight down, not soared with force. Well, we both stood there in shock, and I whispered if she had heard the grunt as well, to which she agreed. So we both booked it for the day. Well, that night at dinner, we told her parents what happened, leaving out the naughty bit, and Megan's younger sister burst into tears, saying she had seen a dark figure at the foot of her bed the last couple of nights, but she didn't want anyone to think she was crazy. Grandfather that died had mental health issues that caused a lot of pain. Well, after that day, I was a believer. When I was about 10 to 14, I had terrible insomnia. I would imagine things and felt incredibly unsafe, as though I was being watched, although I had never admitted this to anyone. I began only sleeping on the couch, with my back against the wall, and had to have the TV or some sort of light on. I missed an immense amount of school because of this, so my mom had me see a neurologist. The neurologist diagnosed me with some things, but the crazy part was during my sleep study, I slept amazingly well. No issues at all, and slept in the real bed. Eventually, I got transferred to a children's hospital, and speaking to the doctor, I explained I would see things and felt uncomfortable. They had thought I was experiencing sleep paralysis. When they told my mom, she went ghost white. She pulled me aside and explained that she was experiencing things too. She described in detail what I was seeing. That evening, she approached my brother and asked broad questions. Do you have anything weird happen in the home, etc.? He also described what we experienced. It was then I realized we must have paranormal activity, and I believed it ever since. When we moved out of that house, all my sleep issues abruptly stopped, and I haven't experienced it since. Expanding on what I would see a large dark figure that I believed to be a man who could walk the halls at night. I would see things happening or hear things happening, like a cup would fall off the counter or items on an entry table move. One evening, I remember seeing a black figure that was smaller, size of a basketball, run across my bedroom floor, hit the wall, and went under the bed. As I was convincing myself it was imaginary, my mom came running in since she heard the thud. At the time, we hadn't all concluded the ghost thing, so I didn't say what it was, but ran out of the house and spent the night at my friend's because I was terrified. My mom experienced many times the feeling of someone sitting on her bed. She said she'd think it was one of us, but look, and there wouldn't be anyone there, just an indent, as if that someone was. I did have a strange experience. I had a cat who I found in a ditch many years ago. She was cute, and I pet her, so she followed me down the train tracks about a mile to my home. I opened the door for her, and she went in. She was offered the opportunity to go back out, and did for a moment, but then came back in. She was mine forever. I've had many pets over the years, and I love them all, but this one was different. She wanted to be near me all the time. I'd often said I'd never have a cat who made me feel like my personal space was being violated before. She followed me up to the bed every night and purred me to sleep. She died fairly quickly. I barely even had a chance to say goodbye. I knew she was ill, having been diagnosed with hyperthyroidism, which cat owners will know is not a very good thing to hear. Although progress has been made, ask your vets about the pens. They vomit their food up and waste away slowly, eventually succumbing to either congestive heart failure or kidney damage. She had taken a turn for the worse, and I thought her treatment wasn't working. On examination, they found tumors in her stomach and liver. She had been dealt a mortal blow and was only going to suffer harder and harder. In the most painful one I've ever had to deal with, I put her down, and she even meowed one last time before the end. I buried her in the yard to keep her close and tried to go to sleep, completely beside myself with grief. As I lay down, I heard something familiar. I live in an old house and my bedroom doesn't have a door, so I installed one of those plastic sliding doors. The slats it's made of make a telltale clacking sound when they're disturbed, like they did when a cat pushes in between them and the door frame. I heard this, and a moment later, I felt the foot of my bed compress, and could feel the mattress deform around my feet. Up beside my legs, and roughly to my hips, I looked. No cat. If you enjoyed this content enough to make it this far in the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and it lets me know what to make. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.